It's down about $1.15 a gallon from their peak during the summer. Gas prices have fallen every day in the last week. Let me repeat, gas prices have come down, and they continue to come down again. They're now down more than 27 cents a gallon in Wisconsin this past week, 27 cents in Oregon, 16 cents in Ohio, 25 cents in Nevada, 17 cents in Indiana in just the last 10 days. And that's progress. But they're not falling fast enough. Families are hurting. You've heard me say it before, but I get it. I come from a family, if the price of gasoline went up at the gas station, we felt it. Gas prices hit almost every family in this country, and they squeeze their family budgets. When the price of gas goes up, other expenses get cut. That's why I have been doing everything in my power to reduce gas prices since Putin's invasion of Ukraine caused these price hikes, these prices to spike and rattle international oil markets. Excuse me. I focused on how we can protect American families from that spike and give folks just a little bit of breathing room, as my dad would say. Today, I'm announcing 3 critical steps that my administration will take to reduce gas prices at the pump. First, the Department of Energy will release another 15 million barrels from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, extending our previously announced release through the month of December. Independent analysts have confirmed that drawdowns from the reserve so far have played a big role in bringing down oil prices, bringing them down. So we're going to continue to responsibly use that national asset. Right now, the Strategic Petroleum Reserve is more than half full, with about 400 million barrels of oil. That's more than enough for any emergency drawdown. With my announcement today, we're going to continue to stabilize markets and decrease the prices at a time when the actions of other countries have caused such volatility. And I've told my team behind me here to be prepared to look for further releases in the months ahead if needed. We're calling it a ready and release plan. This allows us to move quickly to prevent oil price spikes and respond to international events. Secondly, we need to responsibly increase American oil production without delaying or deferring our transition to clean energy. Let's debunk some myths here. My administration has not stopped or slowed U.S. oil production. Quite the opposite. We're producing 12 million barrels of oil per day. And by the end of this year, we will be producing 1 million barrels a day, more than the day in which I took office. In fact, we're on track for record oil production in 2023. And today, the United States is the largest producer of oil and petroleum products in the world. We export more than we import, and I've heard from oil companies that they're worried that investing in additional oil production today will in case demand goes down in the future, and they're not going to be able to sell their oil products at a competitive price later. Well, we have a solution for that. Today, I'm announcing a plan to refill the Strategic Petroleum Oil Reserve in the years ahead at a profit for taxpayers. The United States government is going to purchase oil to refill the Strategic Petroleum Reserve when prices fall to $70 a barrel. That means oil companies can invest to ramp up production now with confidence they'll be able to sell their oil to us at that price in the future, $70. Refining and refilling the reserve at $70 a barrel is a good price for companies, and it's a good price for the taxpayers, and it's critical to our national security. To put it in context, since March, the average price of oil has been more than $90 a barrel, the highest since 2014. By selling from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve at the higher price of $90 earlier this year and then refilling it in the future at a lower price around $70, we'll actually make money for the taxpayers, lower the price of gas, and help bolster production, all while totally consistent with my commitment to accelerate the transition to clean energy. So my message to oil companies is this: you're sitting on record profits, and we're giving you more certainty, so you can act now to increase oil production now. The third thing I'm doing is I'm calling on oil companies to pass the savings on to consumers. Consider this. In the second quarter of this year, profits at 6 of the largest producers, publicly traded oil companies, were more than $70 billion. That's $70 billion in just one quarter, 90 days, $70 billion. So far, American oil companies are using that windfall, the windfall of profits, to buy back their own stock, passing that money on to their shareholders, not to consumers. In fact, in the first half of the year, those same companies spent $20 billion buying back their own stock, and most importantly, buying back the most significant buyback in the last almost a decade. That's great if you own a lot of stock in an oil company or if you're an executive in an oil company. Puts a lot of money in your pocket. That is how you get paid. But it's not the case for the vast majority of Americans paying at the pump. Here's another thing. When the cost of oil comes down, we should see the price of the gas station at the pump come down as well. That's how it's supposed to work. But that's not what's happening. In the past 2 weeks, the price of oil has fallen $4 a barrel. And you think, and thanks in large part to the steps we've taken this year, the price of oil has fallen nearly $40 a barrel since mid-June. That's a 30% drop in the price of a barrel of oil. But guess what? Gas prices haven't fallen that much. And it's not right. Gas prices at the pump should be lower. In fact, if retailers and refiners were earning the average profit they've made over the last 17 years, Americans would be paying at least 60 cents less per gallon for every gallon they buy. Say that again, 60 cents less for every gallon they buy. That makes a big difference in a family. My message to the American energy companies is this: you should not be using your profits to buy back stock or for dividends. Not now, not while a war is raging. You should be using these record-breaking profits to increase production and refining. Invest in America for the American people. Bring down the price you charge at the pump to reflect what you pay for the product. You still make a significant profit. Your shareholders will still do very well, and the American people will catch a break they deserve and get a fair price at the pump as well. One more thing I want to mention today. Our country needs to pass permitting reform to accelerate the development of clean energy. Right now, the process of getting clean energy projects approved is too cumbersome and too time-consuming. So I'm asking the Congress, pass a permitting bill to speed up the approval of all kinds of energy production, from wind to solar to clean hydrogen, because we need to get this moving now, quickly, now. It would take, if we do this, it would take historic clean energy investments that I signed into law and put them into action. In fact, one independent analysis has already estimated that the $369 billion we're making in federal investment that will generate, if we just that, will generate $1.7 trillion in total public and private investments in the years ahead. You can increase oil and gas production now while still moving full speed ahead to accelerate our transition to clean energy. That way we can lower energy costs for American families, enhance our national security at a very difficult moment. Let me close with this. I know it's been a rough 4 or 5 years for the country. For a lot of families, things are still tough. The choices made by other countries are affecting the price of gas here at home. That's why I've been acting so aggressively. Without the steps we've taken over the past several months to ramp up production and lower prices and get relief to consumers, gas prices would be higher than they are today. And we'll keep doing everything we can to keep it going, to ensure that our energy independence and security is available, and to lower gas prices here at home, and to give folks a little bit of breathing room. We just have to remember who we are. We're the United States of America, for God's sake. There's not a single thing we can't do when we put our minds to it. And we can strengthen our energy security now, and we can build a clean energy economy for the future at the same time. It's totally within our capacity, totally within our capacity. Gas prices are coming down. We're going to do everything we can to make sure they continue to come down and companies act responsibly so it's reflected at the pump. Thank you all, and may God bless you, and may God protect our troops. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Mr. President, what is your response?
I don't hear. Can you speak louder?
What is your response to Republicans who say you are only doing this SPR release to help Democrats in the midterms?
Where have they been the last 4 months? That's my response.
Is it politically motivated, sir? This
No,
move
it's not.
3 weeks before the midterms?
Look, it makes sense. I've been doing this for how long now? It's not politically motivated at all. It's motivated to make sure that I continue to push on what I've been pushing on. And that is making sure there's enough oil that's being pumped by the companies so that we have the ability to be able to produce enough gas that we need here at home, oil we need here at home, and at the same time, keep moving in the direction of providing for alternative energy. That's what I've been doing. Now, the problem is these guys are asleep. I don't know where they've been. And they seem, the price at the pump should reflect what the price of a barrel of oil costs. And it's not going down consistently.
Sir, do you understand that there's martial law in parts of Ukraine? What does that say to you, sir, about where his thinking is on the war in Ukraine right now?
I think that Vladimir Putin finds himself in an incredibly difficult position. And what it reflects to me is it seems his only tool available to him is to brutalize individual citizens in Ukraine, Ukrainian citizens, to try to intimidate them into capitulating. They're not going to do that. Thank you.
Sir, do you want to ban the export of U.S. petroleum products?
Thank you, Mr. President.
We've been watching President Biden discuss his plan to reduce gas prices. This includes releasing 50 million barrels of oil from the national reserves. The president says he knows middle-class families are struggling and will do everything he can to drive down prices.
Yeah, the president also pressed companies to increase domestic oil production. He said that companies are sitting on record profits and that they need to act. He says that his administration is committed to refilling the reserves. CBS News senior White House and political correspondent Ed O'Keefe joins us now. Ed, President Biden laid out his three-step plan to lower oil prices. Break it down for us. In short, what are those steps?
Well, look, he had announced earlier this year that he would release up to 180 million barrels from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve and sort of gave himself a cutoff at 165. What he's doing today is essentially saying, remember what I told you earlier this year? I'm going all the way. So this isn't necessarily a new announcement, but the timing is notable, and you saw him get asked about this, given that there are just 20 days to go until the midterm elections, and Democrats are taking heat from voters for not doing enough to deal with inflation and rising gas prices and the price of most other goods and services. So he said that, and then in addition made clear if and when the cost of gas, of barrels of oil drops to about 67 to 72 bucks a barrel, the United States is willing to go in and replenish the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. In essence, saying to oil companies, if you're concerned about pumping more oil, that there'll be market demand for it, there will be, because we'll buy it if you get to about that price. This is an ongoing dispute between the administration and the oil industry, where he calls out their record profits in the midst of these high prices and the struggles around the world for energy resources. And the energy companies turn around and say, well, gosh, things would be easier for us to do business if this administration would get off our backs, allow us to drill more, fix permitting problems with not only the oil industry, but all renewable energy sources, and also, double down on the use of fossil fuels instead of worrying about alternative energy sources. They're going another round here, in essence, by doing this. And he's essentially sticking out a stick and saying, and a carrot, and saying, you want to start producing, we'll be your first big customer.
And how much could these steps actually help achieve the goal of bringing down prices at the pump?
That's the thing. We don't know, and it's not like it's going to be a dramatic reversal of gas prices immediately. These kinds of things usually take about a month to happen anyway. So the release of the barrels of oil won't happen until December, after the elections at this point. And whether or not gas prices go down because of this remains to be seen. By then, OPEC may have made other decisions. There could be some other geopolitical crisis, or the demand for oil could suddenly either increase or decrease, depending on something we're not thinking of right now. But he understands, and he's tried throughout this year to demonstrate that he's tackling inflation. He's called it his top domestic priority, and something he understands is causing great pain and concern for Americans. In the next breath, this White House and congressional Democrats also point out inflation is not unique to the United States. It's happening all over the world. There's been 10% inflation in the United Kingdom, for example. And they'd argue that the American system is controlling those price increases better than Europe and other parts of the world.
And I want to stick with this for another moment because we heard all those reporters asking some follow-up questions about political motivations. We also heard the president even saying in his remarks, blaming Russia for the gas prices going up and talking about OPEC and oil companies as other actors that actually have responsibility. We're 20 days away from the midterms. How much did today's announcement play into that? We heard what the president had to say, but what's the reality?
Well, as we just said, I mean, even if he says it doesn't, it does. And you can point to comments made even by some of his most senior aides just yesterday, responding to criticism that this White House was needlessly focused on abortion rights, which is not a top issue of concern, according to most recent surveys, but the economy is. I said, well, don't worry, he's talking about abortion yesterday, he'll talk about the economy and bringing down prices tomorrow, which in essence is an acknowledgement that, yes, it is an issue. It's a political issue right now for voters as they're voting early or getting ready to vote. And they're trying to demonstrate presidential action this week to help short things up for congressional Democrats across the country. He talked about abortion rights yesterday. Also talked about the fact that the student loan program is now underway and people can apply. Those are two things he did for the base, in essence. Trying to shore up abortion rights, making life easier economically for younger voters who may be saddled with student debt, and older family members as well, frankly, who take that on for their children. Then today, talking about lowering prices. Tomorrow, he's going to Pennsylvania to talk about the infrastructure bill and how over time that's going to help drive economic growth across the country. All of it, again, designed to demonstrate presidential action at a time when our battleground tracker found, released earlier this week, 68% of Americans think he isn't doing enough to help lower prices.
Ed, they're always working on the lawn there at the White House every time we talk to you. I just wanted to ask you one more thing.
Daytime is lawn time.
Later today, the president is expected to announce new grants for companies making batteries from electric vehicles. What can you tell us about that?
$2.8 billion in federal grants going out from the Energy Department to different companies to start mining different minerals here in this country to help start making the batteries needed for things like electric vehicles. All of this is part of the ongoing push by this administration in a bipartisan fashion to bring back a lot of the manufacturing needed for today's technologies. You've seen all the announcements about microchip plants that are being built now in upstate New York, Ohio, Idaho, with federal money. This now another step designed to do that too. The reason they want to bring all that technology back from Asia, we rely too much on China, they would argue. Taiwan, of course, is where most of the semiconductors are made, the chips, and they need to be made somewhere a little more geopolitically stable. And they want to juice the American manufacturing economy. This is another step to do that. This is the kind of thing that makes the big business community quite excited and that many believe helps juice the American manufacturing sector and eventually will make it easier for these things to get produced over time as we begin to rely more on renewables or electric vehicles.
Ed O'Keefe, you've got a busy 20 days ahead, no doubt. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks so much. We're going to take a short break.
Stay with us. You're streaming CBS News.